This is Dan Max at eXp Realty, aka the Trading Agent. This is a live market check, Friday, May 26th, 2023. Let's talk about the craziness. I want to get into that at the start because I think a lot of people see what's going on and they think this is natural or healthy, or this is going to lead to some sort of extended up move. And I want to talk about why I don't think it is and what could be the case for such if it is. And so let's get into that. Right now, the one thing that I think that could ultimately lead to the market to going much higher if it does, and we've talked about this in the past, dollar getting crushed, inflation getting out of control, hyperinflation. Well, as of right now, the dollar's not signaling that, gold's not signaling that, and the market is just rising naturally on its own with the hype, right? We've talked about this a billion times with bubbles, with any sort of hype. The straight line move, the rapid rise, the rapid fall, say if it's the bottom, precedes the inflection points. Now, is that easy to pick? No. That's the one thing I always talk about people. So if you're trading for a living, you're paying yourself when you're right, you're defining your risk, you're trying to manage positions, and there's going to be times where you're early and wrong. We've talked about that a billion times. Well, this one just seems rather crazy. And again, I think the craziness is give the kudos to the market makers. We've talked about the expansion of what? Communication over time gives them the ability to do what? Hype. Hype, 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 hype. And so, again, if you haven't seen this article, or not this article, but just in general, like how the market really plays games with folks, think about it. Rule 3. The expansion of communication media will bring more people to the market, tending to increase volatility of stocks as they increase elements of supply and demand. Well, at this point, they have created unlimited demand, essentially, for who? The retail folks. I mean, to think that this is an exit liquidity in the start of a move, well, that's the thing, right? You got it. The media has to convince folks to do what at the highs? Buy and hold, right? That is the number one goal for exit liquidity or accumulation, right? At the lows, convince everybody to give up at the lows. Right? Because then they'll chase later. And it's the same thing. So the biggest thing that people have to worry about, right? Like rule number 6, advances will be more dramatic on the upside to attract public interest in order to distribute the ever-increasing accumulated inventories. Well, do you not think in October and at the lows, market makers had unlimited opportunity to snag this and mark it up at some point? We talked about in October, there was an inflection point that we were going to go higher. We just didn't know how long it would last. And again, the economic activity, in a sense, is just junk. We talked about it. It's like a continuing stagflation with the Feds trying to pull liquidity out. And every time they get to a certain point, something breaks, right? Banks, right? Oil shocks, right? Whatever you want to call it. Commercial real estate. Credit's tightening. Like there's all these things that are playing out, but they don't, you probably won't see like the gross worseness of it until when? Right? The straight line down move. And so it that's what's so hard about bear markets. There's traders markets. And so when you look at the overall market, you realize 90% of the gains are coming from a few stocks. That's what's kind of crazy. And again, have I seen that before? I mean, not really. I think this happened in the 80s with some like IBM and some of these names. I mean, you can try to compare it to the other tech bubbles, but I mean, they're always a little more broad based. It was like anything with tech. Well, now it's like if you're related anything to AI, people have this like mindset that, AI is the future. Well, no crap. But here's the thing, as I've told people, again, anything in tech, there's no limits to the barrier of entry. None. Zero. Anybody can create code, create AI. There is no restriction on such. And so ultimately what I think will happen, just like the internet. Internet was revolutionary. It was amazing. Right? No one's thinking AI is going away. But what happened in the .com bubble is the same thing. Like you priced in the endless growth for future purposes, and then what? The stocks went nowhere for a decade. Now, how that plays out here with, say, some of these chip names and AI-related stocks, I think it's no different. Because right now, think about what happens here is the mentality of how something is booming so well, so great, it's going to bring in endless competition. Everybody and their mom now wants to do what? Create AI. Everybody and their dad wants to have a piece of this. This isn't the bottom. That's not how things bottom. This is how things top, right? The people who got in from the start are taking their positions off, right? It kind of just is what it is. And this is the hardest part of trading. Like, there's going to be times when you're just going to be wrong. And that's why, because you can't know the emotions of how, I mean, again, I've posted this in the Discord room a couple times, and people they seem to be oblivious to it. But the reality is that, where is it? Again, NVIDIA added almost 2 Intels on their earnings news. But here's the problem, right? In March of 2020, Intel was the rage, hitting 72 share trading at 14 times sales, 60 times earnings. Stock price is now 27. Today, NVIDIA is trading at 35 times sales and 180 times earnings. 180 times earnings. So it doesn't necessarily mean that NVIDIA is going to zero, but to price this in into what's the fair price of NVIDIA? I mean, do people not realize at the highs, like when we were telling people in November of 2020, like, you got to get the fuck out of Tesla. You've got to go. You got to go. People are like, what do you mean, Dan? It's the future. Electric cars are the future. Yeah, and what do we say? Endless supply of future electric cars is coming. They don't have a lock. They had a lot of subsidies. They had a lot of momentum. I mean, whether you like Elon or not, doesn't matter. But once something becomes so overhyped and so much money runs into one sector, I've seen this in dozens of times. It brings endless competition, knockoffs. Everybody and their mom wants to try to make a dime off of this stuff. And I make the joke that, this is like AskJeeves.com on steroids. And some people are like, oh, it's revolutionary. It's going to help margins for businesses. No one's not saying it won't. But what is also AI going to do? Higher unemployment. What are the feds trying to do? Raise rates. What are the feds trying to do? Pull liquidity out of the system. There is a credit crunch, a commercial real estate crunch. There is almost like endless potential issues that are literally whistling past the graveyard as everyone piles into tech stocks. But then you go look at materials, right? You look at financials. You look at retail. You look at the housing stocks starting to roll. You're starting to see everything. Material stocks. Why aren't people buying those? If the economy is really good, people are dumping value to all jump into what? The hype. That's what they do, y'all. Yeah, very similar to cannabis stocks. I mean, this is the thing. I've seen this so many times. If Eric's around here, because this is how Eric and I became friends. AAOI. He loved that, loved that stock, watching it. And then when I told people, like, there's no limit to the endless competition that could come for fiber optics. Anybody can make fiber optic cable and sell it. Anyone can be involved in that space. It's not like there's limits to technology in that. And that stock, I don't know if it's trading at $1 or what it is now. It's just kind of is what it is. And this is what's hard. Options are hard. I mean, you're going to be wrong in trading. I mean, this is the thing I've tried to warn people. If you're looking for security and purpose of just always winning, you're going to get, the market is going to humble you. I mean, it always does at some point. And so now look where we're at in the market. I mean, if you look at this candle, is this a cumulative? Like for NVIDIA? You telling me this is a cumulative? Now, again, 3-day rule, maybe it could go a little higher, it could chop around. No one's going to argue that. Maybe it needs to get to 400. I don't know. I have no clue, right? Like, I'm not going to try to project that out. Like, when you try to draw out the fibs, extensions, we're not really at one. So it's really hard to know, right? But is this healthy? Is this healthy? I mean, imagine if you bought the stock with the liquidity down here in the 140s to 111. You just tripled your money in 6 months. But Dan, it's the future. And yeah, no one's going to argue that, but it's probably priced in. That's the biggest worry you have to have now. This isn't some game where you just buy and hold forever thinking that no one is going to be able to compete with NVIDIA. That is a farce. That is a farce. There's endless competition in chips. Why do you think I always try to explain to people, like, why do you think I long term, when this all rolls over, love shorting semiconductors? Because they become a commodity. They start undercutting each other in price. They literally go to price wars. And they oversupply. And then what happens? They all make great chips. They start cutting prices. They all just compete endlessly and dump endless inventory on the internet, onto the market. And right now, everybody investing in such. I mean, think about it. It's like the housing bubble. Like, once it became so obvious, remember I told you, like, we got out of real estate, fixing and flipping houses in 2007, 2008. We're like, this is not good. Everybody and their mom is trying to do it. Well, everybody and their mom is now trying to create anything related to AI. And again, how much money is actually in AI? As we've said, it's a feature. It will help businesses, yeah. Save money, great. But look at the economic turmoil that's coming down the pipe. The feds know there's a credit crunch. They're the little ones creating it. They pump the bubble. When have the feds navigated a soft landing? Can anyone name one time? No. This one's just taking longer. It's just the nature of it. How many people remember we said last year, this isn't going to be a 3 or 6 month bear market or trading like choppy, sloppy, shitty market. I thought this is probably going to be years. I mean, it took years to get up, right? Go from 2010, 11 years. Excuse me. So it's just one of those things where if you want hard and fast, like pure answers, you don't know. And just like, again, Curran, who's posting on the Discord room, appreciate his post. I mean, he was patient, and patience usually pays off. But sometimes this is the thing. You're going to be early, you're going to be on time, and you're going to be late. And when you're on time, be appreciative. When you're early, define your risk. When you're late, just part of the game. If trading was easy and you could nail every entry, it's just a joke. And so here you go. Here's the .com bubble, peak in semis, going nowhere. Now, you look at this and you go, man, we're at some interesting areas, right? Like, we pull up the weekly. Like, here's your next, like, inflection points, right? So you had, like, this level. We got over it, gapped into it. But then now you have, what? This area? I mean, I don't know how you want to draw it. That's like the floating top. Like, we're getting back to that level. Oh, Jesus. Could we break out? I don't know. But this is not healthy. This is chasing action. This is action of desperation. I hope people see that. But, I mean, maybe they won't. Are you talking about for NVIDIA? MQ? I mean, I honestly think just like for solar, saw, again, ridiculous move up on earnings that made, they bought, no, not earnings, but they bought a company for $35 million. The stock gapped up, huge volume, and then look what it's done since. Right? Been a strong name, right? Goes from 60 to 220. Well, you pull up the NVIDIA chart, it's what? 80 something? No, sorry, 111, 108, up to 380. Now, I swear to God, I'm telling you guys for a fact, if this chart was upside down, you should be buying it. If this was the bottom, the novice gap bottom, right? I mean, do you guys remember we talked about, Meta, Tesla, they all had this. They had this gap down on earnings on the extremes, pricing in the worst case scenario, right? Right? You guys remember this? I mean, I guess these gaps weren't too big, but look at the liquidity down here, right? Right? Look at the liquidity just at the highs. All these novice gaps and traps. Here you go, another novice gap trap. If history is what it is and should repeat, then you look at NVIDIA and you go, well, you just watch the levels. I mean, again, their earnings were down year over year. They're hyping up 50% growth off of what I would consider low expectations. People say, well, their expectations. It's like, nah, the market really didn't believe such, but their growth rate 50% off of whatever it was. Like, again, I'm not going to sit here and say I know for sure, but I've seen CEOs, and when I see CEOs hype the shit out of stuff, that makes me very nervous. Because just like at the lows, they kitchen sink the quarter. Like, they say all the bad stuff. Well, now it's rising, or risen, and now he's parroting all the good stuff. Now, I'm not going to say I know for sure who's liquidating, but I would not be surprised if you find out weeks, months, next 13Fs, people were unloading. People were taking profits. People were taking their shares off. So, I mean, it just kind of is what it is. And this is where it always is just, again, I don't know how to explain this with anything other than the market is going to do things that you just don't understand. It's going to humble you at some point. If you're in this for the long run, that's what we always talk about. When you're making money, pay yourself. Don't just keep betting more and more and more and more money. Because if you're wrong like you are right here, right now, for example, for me, you're broken. You're done. Game over, potentially. That happened to me. And so now I pay myself regularly. And what do you know, so I can absorb this. It hurts. Hit your stops. You do what you got to do. Can we talk about Meta? Yeah, of course. When I look at Meta, I mean, it feels like the same kind of thing, right? Like they're trying to instigate like this AI thought process. You're into this big gap. How far? Who knows? Again, Q's being pulled up. People, again, this like mentality of just buy tech, buy mega tech, buy the leaders, right? Like that whole chase and buy names that they think are going to go up forever. Instagram's dead. Instagram was always a platform for sharing photos and inspiration. Well, now you can literally go to any AI website and they can create images for you. I mean, have people seen this now? Because again, I'm a guy, I go on Instagram and I see AI generated photos of women. It's literally fake pictures. Their reels, again, they stopped paying influencers anything. People have no desire to post there. Now, again, their reels, why do you think they're asking for Congress to ban TikTok? Competition. They can't even handle it. Like Instagram, I mean, again, that's the thing. It's like, even if Instagram's growth rate is not going to continue. I mean, to me, it's a dead company in time. But again, you get the hype. Why are they laying off people every other week? What have they done differently to grow and compete? Twitter's about to unleash, knowing Elon, he's just going to go after everybody and trying to pull more reels, pull more content, pull more people posting. Like, people don't realize, like, DeSantis, again, whether you like politics, releasing his, going, live for his announcement to run for president. That's things you used to do on the news. That's the thing you would probably do on Instagram or YouTube. No, we did it on Twitter. Whether you like Snapchat or not, Snapchat's always around. That's where people are chatting. So it's kind of one of those things where, what's Meta's backbone? What's Instagram's backbone? Right? What's their backbone? What's their revenue drivers? People who market on there know it's terrible. Like, at least Google will let you do things where they'll only charge you if you get leads. You have to throw money at Meta for marketing, and you get the worst, the absolute shittiest leads. Because the average person on Instagram and Meta is between 28 and 21. They don't spend money. Again, I know this because of the businesses I run for real estate. Like, we don't make any money on Meta. So we stopped investing in it. Most real estate agents have realized this. It's a marketing waste of money. You get trolls and people don't give a crap. You might as well use Google searches, Bing searches, AI related voice searching. Better money spent. TikTok, people, again, go look at the engagement. I mean, I'm guilty. I mean, I would look at TikTok way more than I look at anything else now. And it's not because I look at TikTok for waste time. Like, once the algorithm's better, it feeds me stuff that I like to listen to. So, please forgive me. Large option contracts. Wonder again. The hardest thing you have to realize about options contracts is you don't know who's buying and selling them. Back in the day when I first started, only pros were trading options. Now you've got large swaths of everybody's trading options. So again, depending on the liquidity, you don't know who's buying and selling. That's why I always joke about Occidental Petroleum. Warren Buffett gives no shits about Occidental going higher because he keeps selling more and more covered calls. And what does he do with the cash? Buys more stock. Doesn't care. QQQ. It's a beast. Coming into levels again, high volume highs, high volume lows. Love to retest. Could it get into 350s? Maybe. I mean, it was under the 20 month. It busted out, but again, when you look at the monthly, again, this is what I always say: like zoom out first. Ooh, excuse me. What do you see in like this area, right? Sorry. See a lot of monthly opens and closes around here in wicks, right? What level does it need to get to? I mean, this is where it gets hard. I mean, I wish I could tell you where it's going to go. But think about the fear and greed. Like, you guys have seen like that chart of like markets, you know, it's like different emotions. This is the everything is okay bounce, in my opinion. Unless we get hyperinflation. Which, again, I'm pretty sure the Feds are going to try to fight it hard. Because if they want to keep their reserve currency status with the dollar, then they can't give up. At least just yet. Wow, Netflix back up near. There you go. You're welcome, Deanna. That's where options are so hard. Like, so many people are trying to pay for services that they think are going to give them insights. But now that everybody trades options, you just have to assume liquidity is what it is. Some people are buying, some people are selling. Now, if something rises and the call action rises, maybe somebody knows something that's going on. But with the actual indexes, I mean, man, there's so many like 0.30, daily options people are jumping into trading. I mean, you got to assume that's more of a, retail mindset, people taking their bets. Now, again, obviously some pros are going to go in there and punch those things at times as needed. But it's hard to know for sure. And so it's like simplicity at a core, I think, is easier. So it's just interesting because, looking at a lot of stocks, you can like make the case for all sorts of stuff. But I'd call me biased, right? But we talked about like financials lead, right? Do financials look good here? I know they're holding these levels, but do they really look good? We talked about the KRE bouncing up to like 41, 42, right? IWM, right? Like, shouldn't the IWM lead a bull market? Looks pretty lagadocious to me, right? Like material names. Name your favorite one, right? Like looking at letter X a lot, right? Steel. The thing is dead. AA. Aluminum supply. Aluminum is in everything. Right? Ag names, throttled. VALE, right? Big global material name. Right? It just kind of boggles the mind. Where are the transports at? Yeah, I mean, it's just a few names and hype drawing in the crowds, y'all. It's just hard to say. Sometimes these crazy large block option traders are decoy trades. Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious to know how the market, because you can like spoof trades in futures. There's ways of doing that with the options market, right? what does that mean? I mean, pretty sure it's not hard to like attack an options trade with the same way you kind of corner a futures trade, right? Like you can put pressure on the bid and the ask with the stock to affect the options, which gets people to react, right? They could create triggers because they know there's people who are analyzing the action. I mean, again, remember, this is like whales eating whales, sharks eating sharks, rich eating the rich. So it's a never-ending battle. That's where I used to try to figure out like what's going on all the time, and then I'm like, man, I've seen it change. I've seen options action change. I've seen the action in the futures market be manipulated, thinking that X is going to happen, and then Y did, and you're like, what the? It's like, okay, never mind. That is just trying to create certainty out of something that isn't. And so, as much as a lot of people will try to argue, you know, a lot of the options action makes things predictable. Yeah, I would say sometimes it probably does. Apple, we've talked about the same thing. I mean, here's the NVIDIA, you know, a novice gap trap. Liquidity at the highs. I mean, I think Apple's in a very similar boat. Like when you zoom out on the monthly, right? We're at major levels there on the daily. You can see it, but here it is on the monthly. Right? Like, is Apple going to break out? I mean, PC shipment from Lenovo announced 75% down. Now, Apple's not a computer company, but how many people are sitting around buying new iPhones? Right? Like, I mean, I know they're trying to move their manufacturing to India, which is great. That's awesome. But, I mean, from what I'm gathering from, I mean, I always like to watch commercials. Again, I try to not have commercials, but when I do watch targeted ads, and again, I'll probably get one now that I'm talking about Apple. Hey, I want to buy a new iPhone. Someone heard me, my phone or this computer or whatever. How many ads will you get? Switch today and we will pay for your phone. Like, what is the next Apple product to really get things going? So, you know, people say it's just basically a bank now. I mean, you can make the argument a million ways. But it's like, all right, is Apple going to throw out some AI conversation at some point? I don't know. It's just a joke. Again, at the highs, you will hear headlines of how great things are, and at the lows, you will hear what? The opposite. Yeah, no, I agree, Joe. I mean, there's a lot of things going on here that me, will never know the answer to. Yeah, I mean, I've heard that too. They're going to release this VAR headset. Like, people, I mean, was it 52% of people have less than $400 saved up in case of emergency? Credit card balances are blowing out. I mean, you do the math here. Is this all like sustainable, right? Interest rates, people don't realize interest rates at 7% are actually inflationary. I've said this many times. Like, that's why gold typically does do pretty well with higher rates, but then when they cut them to try to like stimulate, then they go bonkers, right? You know, like, what do you do? I mean, I look at Apple very simply, like, watch the 20-day. Once it breaks, it's probably fucking done. Excuse my language. Toast. QQ, yeah, SPY trying to get that 420 level. IWM just kind of lagging. DIA 330, I mean, it's lagging. Dollar flat. TLT flat. VIX back to 18. VIVIX, wow, back down to 97. Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, it's amazing to look at these. Look at the 5 candles up on COVID. Yeah. 5 months of Apple straight green. I mean, everything kind of looks like this, though. Right? And again, people say maybe the market won't crash until the Feds pivot. I don't know. I mean, the liquidity's coming out of the system. And then you throw in the debt ceiling stuff. I don't know what the answer to that is going to be. I kind of don't really talk about it a ton because I don't know if it really matters. But I think we're coming to a point where there are some Republicans that are just, I mean, God bless them, man, or whatever you want to say. Like, they understand, like, you can't just endlessly spend forever. I mean, every week it's like, oh, we're sending a couple $100 million to Ukraine, a couple billion. Yeah, we don't have money for Social Security. We don't have money to fund, care for the veterans. We don't have help the homeless to build infrastructure. Like it's an absolute joke. And again, what do you think is political left or right? But it's like clearly people aren't screaming loud enough. That's how I blame. Like people are like, oh, it's just this part. Well, clearly no one is going nuts that we are spending $100+ billion on Ukraine. Good return on investment. What are we getting out of it? I mean, think about just the federal, again, when you dive into this, it's like kick the can down the road mentality. Why do you think the credit default swaps on the U.S. Treasuries blew out, been rising? We'll see. We'll see. At the highs, everything looks great. At the lows, and again, if you're newer or you've been trading and whatever, remember this feelings. Remember this. Remember these feelings, because you're going to remember at some point at the lows. I mean, again, we get trolled. A lot of people, when we talk about buying in October, late September, people are like, you're crazy. All right. Okay. What is Biden getting out of this? Again, trying not to be political, but you don't have to just name Biden. Look at every single politician. They go into politics making low six figures, and then they're all multimillionaires or double-digit, triple-digit millionaires. It's like, well, they're doing something pretty good, and it's not running the country, that's for sure. But it's pow. Yeah, country's a mess. World's a mess. That's why I'm always like laughing at people like, well, Trump will fix it. Trump blew out the spending too. Yeah, Ukraine 50 LLC. Yeah. Like, think of this as like a cancer patient that needs chemo. Like, they got to kill the spending. They got to get balanced. Not even in balance. They got to try to balance the budget before the interest cost of the debt alone blows out. I mean, I thought it was the only thing I think Trump did that I thought was smart. He was talking about in 2000 and whatever, selling 100-year debt. I'm like, yeah, interest rates are zero. Sell as much as you can. Fund the fiscal deficits at 0%, or not 0, but 1%, 2% for 100 years. That would have been smart. But, we're just kind of where we're at. And the problem is, ultimately, is with AI, with the internet, with virtual work, I mean, commercial real estate's a huge problem. Banks, remember, they have a limited amount of credit. And when they start tightening their belt, they're not, and they think the economy is weakening. Remember, they're looking forward, right? They're looking forward to the idea of tightening conditions. Well, that pool of money being lent out just decreases as things seem to get worse. So it actually exacerbates the issue, So, we'll see. What's your opinion on PSLV? I see a lot of institutions adding the physical silver. Again, silver's hard, right? Because, I think we all agree it's undervalued. But the problem is the futures market. So that's where, like, you can have this conversation on buying silver. I mean, I could be absolutely wrong here, but I wouldn't touch precious metals with a 10-foot pole. Because if liquidity's coming out of the system, and next thing you know, rates are still continuing to go up, whatever you want to call it. There's nothing safe about the physical silver and gold futures market. Like, once people start panicking, the CME raises margin requirements. What do? They create literally forced selling. So maybe institutions are buying here, but they can't control the price in the physical market, in my opinion. And if anything, what typically happens, right, is like people people continue to buy when the market makers want it to go down, and at some point, what do? They cause this forced liquidation. I don't look at silver like some sort of forced liquidation at this point. Like, either it's need a big. I mean, here was like it's hard to see on the silver SLV, but I would think the forced liquidation comes with more price decrease at this point. Right? Like, here was the forced liquidation for Ukraine at the highs, right? Like, if you want to buy silver, I mean, think of it just NVIDIA in reverse. The gap down, smash, ending on high volume. I mean, are we really there yet? Sorry. I mean, again, buy physical. I think it's, you get it what it is. But is this like the end? This is a professional gap to start the down move, right? I don't give a snot what institutions are doing. It doesn't look like it's going higher, though. We all agree. Now, again, maybe it could here. Maybe this is a little short-term bounce point. But I would not buy silver with anything. No. Hell's no. Best time to buy silver is when the market capitulates and the Feds pivot. We're not there yet. That's why I think people are getting into didn't understand the dust trade. Didn't understand taking profits on gold and just letting it be. It's the second quarter. Leave it alone. Feds are still in this tightening cycle, credit tightening cycle. Baby you out with the bathwater. People don't have the funds. There's not liquidity flowing. I think it's just hard. It's just so hard to say, well, what's the best investment? You just got to trade stuff. If you bought gold at the lows and it or silver, we talked about it. Okay, went a little higher than we thought. Yeah, I mean, that's the problem here. Look, SMH has high volume. Look at the hourly charts. Let's check it out. Check it out. I mean, it's probably pretty distributive. I'll see what I got here. Let's pull up where's the 60? Oh yeah. Oh. Yeah. Capitulation can be up and down. Yeah, you've got high volume up here, and now you're getting indecision on the hourly. I've said this, and I could be right, could be wrong. I think today will be an outside reversal candle on a Friday. And maybe it's too much to ask for, but I have a feeling there's going to be a wick. A wick on these candles, if I had to guess. Yeah, I mean, capitulation. I mean, you can capitulate up and downside. Remember, it's shorts capitulate and give up. I mean, remember, they're also the exit liquidity. Right? Shorts just going, we give up. What's up, Cat? What you want? So, I mean, think about here's a capitulation. Remember we talked about First Solar. This is bullshit. That wasn't going to end well. Well, here it is. Short squeeze capitulation. And then look what it's done since. Right back on down. Is that going to be NVIDIA's future? I don't know. What day is it going to start to flop? I don't know. But is this not exit liquidity? Capitulation? Again, if this chart was upside down, I'd be screaming buy. Buy. I mean, here you go. Here's the hourly as well. The biggest candle was a big distro candle. Volume has lightened up and it's chopped. All right, let's see how the chop resolves. Right? I'm just curious. Look at some of these other tech names. Amazon. Oops, not the 10-minute. All right, hitting the trend line. We talked about that. Guggenheim seems to be stuck in this 120s. Yeah, upside target zone. Microsoft, disgusting. I mean, I still can't believe people are buying this, but there was a gap up here. There's some gaps up here. Give it to me. Right? We have one up here. I mean, could we get there? I don't know. Disgusting, though. I mean, look at this. People, I mean, that's the thing. You implant any other non-tech chart. Oil is up, USD index is up, rates are up, and the NASDAQ is up. Are investors not paying attention to what's going on? When you say investors, remember, the market's not rational. It's very emotional. Remember, the average investor, I mean, I posted these, here, just these rules, right? Talk about the rules of the market makers, right? Let me go back to it. Just take 3 seconds to look through this. The investor must learn to think of specialist merchants who want to sell inventory to, again, the market makers. Do you not think that they're playing 3 and 6 to their fullest? I mean, as Eric posted something in the Discord room, like, market makers deserve a bonus. Yeah, I never in a million years did I think NVIDIA's earnings would justify a 25% up move. Growth's still down year over year. Yeah, but quarter over quarter, it's growing 50%. Okay. Yeah, there's some investment in AI, but there's been plenty of investment in chips. Go look at the prices of this stuff. Yeah, when you discount it huge, you start discounting prices. Well, yeah, you're probably going to sell some. That's what retailers do to their inventory, right? When they can't sell, drop prices. Yeah, and this is the thing about Marvel. I mean, I was looking through there, they've guided down so hard to the point where it didn't matter. What was it Marvel? Was it MRBL? Yeah. I mean, they just kept guiding down, and it's like, okay. At some point, right? Just all they need is a little bit of excitement. I mean, this looks like a penny stock. If this was like a penny stock, people would be dumping the snot out of it. But they've been guiding down, and then they, I'm pretty sure they're not completely unaware of what's going on. They probably figured out a way to manipulate the reaction, and Wall Street probably wanted it too, right? Like, pretend you've been buying Marvell down in the 30 to 40 range. You're like, yes, unload. And I'm not talking about like, can't say it, porn style unloading. Like, this is just literally, it's disgusting. That's how I look at it. It's gross. Do you think that once the debt ceiling is resolved, it will sell the news event and markets correct when they realize rates are going higher and that getting cut by the not getting cut? Again, people don't realize cutting of rates means the world is a shit show. When they start cutting rates, that means things are getting terrible. Well, they had to throw liquidity into the system and raise up their balance sheet, even though they want to decrease it. So it was like a temporary, I think, and this is what they're learning, is it only did them a disservice. Rates have gone higher because as soon as they threw just a little bit of liquidity in there to try to help the banking system, what happened to PCE today? It's reaccelerating. Look at the inflation rates around the world. They're very sticky. I mean, does tech usually do better with higher interest rates? No. I mean, the debt ceiling resolved will be a ton of treasury sales. Yeah. I mean, I've said this endlessly. The feds want people to buy the dollar and buy treasuries in the end. If that means liquidity comes out of the markets, they don't give a shit. They got to get what? Inflation under control, and they need people to buy their debt, buy government debt. If you want to maintain currency status, that's what they're going to have to do. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's all good. So, I mean, the government's kind of, again, we've talked about, is giving them more reason to raise it. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You're right now at the Fed funds. Let me look at it real quick. It's 28% yesterday. Let's hit the refresh. Yeah, QQQ seem to be holding up. Now you're at a rate hike. No, I think I'll pass. So again, this is the thing. Raising rates. Is it going to be good for the market? We'll see. Look at Bitcoin. We talked about this thing. Just oil, natural gas, chopping UNG. People are, man, I'm amazed. Again, I'm telling people, like, lay off the UNG. Even natural gas, as it's holding up, look at stupid UNG. It's already pulled back more than like 12%. Where is the UNG? That's 60 or something? Like, lay off this thing. Lay off UNG. Yeah, 773 back down to 650. Lay off of the UNG for the love of all that is holy. Holy water. So, again, yeah, I mean, it's the QQQ 350. Yeah, I mean, it feels very capitulatory, right? We talk about big green, red, big green and big reds at inflection points, like big candles, potentially. Throw the gap in there. Straight line move. This is what I'd like to see. This is what I was hoping to see today. Something like this. Maybe we don't get it. This candle right here, he just comes right back. So, where are we again? Man, it's just getting silly. We broke out of the channel. I guess we have another channel right here. Something like this, right? No, I guess not. Hold on, let me see if you can draw it a little differently. Remember, this drawing is subjective, so don't sit here and go, well, it's perfect science. No, I mean, you have gone parabolic. And what is the one thing that we have said? If you've been paying attention to this channel for a while, sometimes you break out of channels to create traps too. Just keep that in mind. Sometimes you do that, right? You break below the channel. Where was it? Maybe I still have it on my SPY chart. Yeah, here you go. You had a nice clean SPY downtrend. Break it to be the bottom and pop. Right? Break the uptrend, fail. Or downtrend, fail. See right here? Now you're at gap fill. I mean, could we get to 422? I think it's always possible. But chopping up here, I mean, look at these red candles. I mean, somebody was like, all right, I'm out. Cool, I'll take exit liquidity. I'm out. Then it rallies back on the doji chop. Now, again, people say, well, they're selling because of the debt ceiling. You sure that's the only reason? Not maybe because we're up from 350 to 420-ish? I mean, the recession that is coming. I mean, the feds are literally going to manufacture one. I don't know how to tell this to people. There's no such thing as a soft landing. What's a soft landing? When a credit crunch takes over. What's a soft landing when commercial real estate blows out? What's a soft landing when banks are failing? Now, again, they can try to throw money at it, hope it sticks, but they cannot stop banks from doing what they're doing. They're raising rates on credit cards. They're raising rates on their loans, and they're lending out less. I mean, it's just supply demand, folks. Don't know how to explain that. Right? With trampoline, yeah. This is just hard. If you think you're sitting I always tell people, you're not really smart. You're just doing what the market's doing. So a lot of people think when they get into trades, oh, I'm going to be right. This is what's happening. I mean, you think this is what's going to happen. It makes sense. And it works, it works. But sometimes the market is going to be irrational. I mean, how many people remember this day on the SPY? I do. Remember we talked about big outside reversal? The world is going to end. Who remembers the gap down on that day? I do. The world is going to end. And then when we pull back, people were like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, you got to buy this. Oh, nope, you got to buy this. Nope. Pulls back, okay. Didn't we say you got to buy this here? Remember this? It's it's just a gap fill. I thought this was the top. Yeah, Osh, again, I would throw RSI in the trash. I mean, again, it just follows price. I mean, you can get exacerbated RSI readings, and it doesn't really tell you anything other than oversold or overbought. It's not telling you when to get in and get out. Because stocks can go lower than you think, they can go higher than you think. So, I mean, I've said that, again, it's same thing with Bollinger Bands, MACD, RSI. I mean, they're all little tools, but they don't predict anything. They just follow price. So what use is something that just follows price? I mean, I don't need a RSI to tell me the market's overbought or Nvidia is overbought, right? QQQQE equal weighted, right? Yeah, I mean, it's right back at its inflection points. Good call, Zeph. Worth looking at. Could we go a little higher? Maybe. Again, liquidity sucks on this. Like 50,000 shares is compared to what the Qs trade. What? How many millions of shares? Maybe a billion shares some days. Maybe, I don't know. There's a lot of decimal points. Yeah. Million. Right? Yeah. Can't even see it, so small. Lots of shares. That's liquidity. It's funny, like looking at NTR. Remember someone who saying like, "Is that the bottom?" Nope. Oh, man, come on. I literally don't know how much they can stretch this out. I mean, just remember though, that's why I was trying to like remind people, like, remember this candle down here. Remember this candle. This is the kind of crap that can happen at inflection points. Gap ups. This is a little redonkulous. But how high? I mean, they're pulling Nvidia back up, right? So is somebody upgrading the stock? That's kind of always what you got to be careful of. Is like, is our brokerages upgrading, not updating? Think about all the actual upgrades too. How many buddy passes for liquidity have been handed out? It's hard to know when it ends. It is hard to know when it ends at this point because now it's not logical, right? Soxel alarm. Interesting. It's a previous old alarm. When does it end? I mean, that's the thing. Somebody, maybe if you're sitting there watching the 5 minute, you can see it. But how many signals have looked, in my opinion, when you look at the intraday charts, you go, oh, that looks like a little reversal signal, right? That looks like it's the top. No, the pump. It's like, Arnold, the pump is real. Feels like I'm coming. Like AMD, like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I guess I'm not kidding you, are we? Are you kidding me? So just when in doubt, I mean, you have to manage risk because there's going to be times. This is the thing. It's like, that's also too why, like, you have a winning trade. Like, pretend you owned Nvidia. Like, when we talk about gold, like, the more it's up, the less you have to own. You need to start to think about exiting because you don't know when it's going to turn. Well, so that's where it's so hard up here. Same thing like layering into shorts or stopping out when you're wrong, layering in, and if wrong, picking your, defining your risk. Like, there's a lot of little things. I mean, is it best to get out at this point? I mean, it's one of those things. Like, if you're picking bottoms, picking tops, the higher something goes, the lower something goes if it has value. I mean, the more likely it's a better trade. That's where it gets so hard. And that's where if you want to be late at this point, I can totally see the logic in it, right? Like, do you want to see some sort of outside reversal candle? Are you waiting for some news that might change? That's always got to be in the back of your mind. It makes sense. Makes sense. But same thing like gold. Like you were talking about, like, it doesn't look right. Something's funny here. Getting into levels. Getting choppy sloppy. Do you want to hold on? Do you? Do you? So here again. QQQ. Just doing what it's doing, right? Yeah, no, I mean, they're really insane moves. They feel very capitulatory. It's hard as hell. I wish somebody could, like, there's some formula for ease. That's why it's like that's why on social media, like, folks that sit around and act like this is easy. It's easy when you have the trend. It's easy when you get the hype. But are these people going to take profits? Because the market makers are probably going to take their profits at some point. Remember that. That's the hardest part. AI is the future. Remember, when the market is very good at getting people to believe in unlimited higher growth or lows, to get people to hold on to their positions way beyond when they should have. I mean, what point do interest rates need to get tech to get softened up, right? Talk about the TLT. And if you break below 99, spaghetti-o. Unreal, this pump, man. Unbelievable. But, I mean, I guess it's not, though, when you got liquidity funneling in, getting even more desperate. Because right now, like, think about when the Qs aren't doing that, when they're just kind of meandering up and the market's chopping around, the average money manager is like, well, it's whatever, I don't care. Now that they're starting to see these outlandish returns, it gets other people to go, well, I got to get a piece of that. I have to own that for the end of the quarter. I have to have that on my statements. I got to own NVIDIA. I've got to own tech. Oh my God. When I send out these statements, if I show such a mediocre return, oh my God, I didn't beat the index. I didn't own this stuff. This is end of month window dressing, markup, whatever the hell you want to call it. Think about the psychology. Pretend that 20 of us are market, excuse me, we manage money for big institutions, different institutions. I see Bob, James, and Zeph killing it. They're talking about how great they're doing. They're telling their clients, we are knocking out home runs, y'all. And then me, Eric, Scott, whatever, the other 10 of us are like, we're not doing so hot. And we're getting phone calls. Hey, Dan, how's our quarter looking? How's our month looking? Solid 3%. 3%? I know Zeph down the street, I hear they're up 20, not 20, like 13, 14%. They own AI stocks. What AI stocks do we own? Well, we didn't get in out the hype at the lows. We own some other solid names, but, we don't want to chase. But don't you know this is the future? Yeah, of course. Yeah. And then the higher they run, the dumber they look. I mean, it is FOMO. I mean, even big money gets it. I try to explain this to people. There are natural pressures on all participants to perform. You and I don't have pressure. So ideally, we don't. Again, if you told me today to buy NVIDIA at 380 or put a bullet in my head in 6 months, if it's below it, I'd probably, and make $1 million. I mean, I'd probably agree to something crazy. I'm like, all right, that seems pretty normal to me. Now, again, unless inflation just goes nuts and we get the Argentina, Venezuela stock market phenomenon where everyone just piles into everything because they're like better than cash, then yeah. Because companies will be able to raise prices and, their margins will expand. But are we at that point? I mean, again, I don't see how companies are able to pass on higher prices. I mean, I'm not seeing it. I mean, I'm seeing, again, I see it in the housing market. People, some areas a little stronger than others. Some places you can get good pricing. But I would say in general, the average house in the average market is what? Price decreases. A house that I saw sell 2 years ago for $955 went under contract at $855 this week. It's 2 years ago. Great house. I mean, I thought the value was like $910, $915. I mean, it sold at $855. Now, again, every market's a little different. A new house might be different. Features might be different, but a good house in Denver, I mean, dropping. I mean, I'm seeing listings, people going $875, $899, $950, dropping prices, just do every week. Doesn't sell, drop a little more. Now, again, that's not something you see if interest rates are at 3%, 4%, right? It's hard to know, y'all. It is hard to know. Again, if you lived through the 2009 bubble, you saw stuff. You saw the market go nuts. You saw oil, remember? And this is what we always talk about. Who remembers, because oil was leading, right? Who remembers, what I've talked about is one of the best trades I ever took. Shorting oil. People kept saying, oh, they're running out of oil. They're running out of oil. The Saudis are bone dry. It's so hard to get oil, yada, yada. We've got this, what was it? We've got probably 10 years left. If population grows, supplies. But it's like, dude, oil is the second most abundant liquid on the planet. Maybe it gets harder to find, but it's everywhere. Kapow. NVIDIA, they have the best chip. No one's ever going to be able to compete. No one's ever going to be able to compete with NVIDIA, guys. Right? What they're doing is so special, nobody can copy it. They will have a lock on this technology for the next 10 years. You see the similar, mentality and headlines, the mindset, the thought process, the same pumping of endless growth. That is what you see at the highs. Who remembers at the lows? Oh, there's a glut. Oh, they're going out of business. The hype is over. I mean, again, you insert headline for emotion, emotionality, right? Give up. How many times, again, we talked about First Solar topping, right? For example, here's a good one. And same thing, look at this action. Oh, First Solar is amazing. Solar is the future. Yeah, it is the future. It was the future. All right. Again, I'm not trying to act like I know today is the top. I hope I'm right. If it is, then I was a lucky guess. I'm not going to sit here and claim I'm from the future and can know that for sure. Again, where is that? Let me look it up. Give me 2 seconds. Ocean chart stocks. Right? Do you remember this? Hold on. Maybe it's a little cleaner. Yeah. Yes. It's like Darth, whatever, Sidious. The return to normal. The return to normal. The return to normal. The return, let me close this up and literally first sell-off, media attention, COVID, that was 2018 when they were raising rates, greed, delusion, new paradigm, denial, bull trap. We talked about it. It was a bear trap. Who remembers that? And now we are return to normal. I thought return to normal might stop at the 20-month. Wrong. Does this seem very logical what's going on here? QQQs go from 20 to 408. Do I need to say more? Should I just end the recording? I hope people understand this. This is hard. The return to normal. We are there, right? Soft landing. We've got leadership. The market's not that bad. Everything is going to be okay. You got to assume the worst is priced in. Okay. I apologize if you've lost money. I've lost money. Hasn't been easy. Never is. Well, again, I mean, sometimes it is. I guess it was easy if you just bought NVIDIA calls on their earnings. Any call, literally. Anything under 350, probably thousands of times X. You know, I've been lucky, done that before, hit some home runs with those, but is what it is. Can you see this chart? And does it overlay? Does it look very comparative? Do you see it? Do you all see this? Like, I mean, am I talking to myself? The return to normal. Do you see where we're at? The new bull market. Okay. You're fucking smoking crack if you think so. Again, why, Dan? Why? Inflation anchoring in. Feds need a raised rate. Credit crunch. They're trying to reduce their balance sheet. IWM is lagging. They've never navigated a soft landing. The balance sheet needs to be run off. The world's a shit show. Commercial real estate. Banks. The put that keeps oil prices high. This is the problem. Like when we drained the SPR, now we are literally going to keep a bottom. We're going to keep the bottom up. It's just hard. That is hard. The timing. That's why I always tell people, like, oh, timing. So, all right. All right. I'm going to get rolling. Please be careful out there. Don't get caught in the stupidity. Don't do what everyone else is doing at this point. Just be careful. All right? I will talk to you guys and gals later. Have a great weekend. Peace.